Hello and welcome everyone back to the Adam Hazara Show here on YouTube, episode 5. We got a lot to talk about today, recapping Lake Braddock's state semis loss versus Madison. Of course, I have special guest Lake Braddock, former freshman football coach, Coach Laguna, and also one of my broadcasting buddies in the show with us today. Hope you are doing good, my friend. We will also be having JD Fedor on again. He'll be joining a little later on in the show, so make sure to check that out. And so we'll get into this today. And before we get started, just please, guys, we've hit that subscribe button, leave a like, notification. Also, if you want to put out a mailbag question, it can be put out in chat. Tag the show on X at Adam Hazara Show, or you can email the show at theadamhazarashow@gmail.com, all lowercase. So without further ado, let's get started. And first of all, we have some shout-outs today for some Lake Braddock football players. Congratulations to Kai Austin, Trent Payne, Xavier Main, Michael Cerise, Titus Ackle, Cleet Cash, and Zach Hibner for all earning first-team All-Region honors. All 7 of them were first-team All-District, and those were all of the first-team All-District guys that the Bruins had this year. And also, additionally, with Trent Payne, congratulations on Trent Payne for winning the Regional Defensive Player of the Year as well. So I just want to quickly shout out all those 7 fellows over at Lake Braddock Football. Amazing work they've done this year. A lot of those seniors go out big in this year, winning another region title.
Adam, thanks for having me. I appreciate being with you again. It feels like it's been an eternity with you guys. I know JD's joining us a little bit later in the show, but yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so let's get into the kind of just a Madison review of that state semifinals game. Of course, the Bruins, I'll just say this first, they kind of went down unceremonious fashion. They lost 42-19. And this is a game that, I'll just say right off the bat, a game that Lake Braddock easily could have won. In my opinion, and you might agree with me on this, just way too many mistakes. Of course, we were talking about this the other day. Madison just really took advantage of it. What do you think?
Well, I watched the game. Obviously, I watched it a couple times. I will say early in the game, I think they were nervous. I know these guys. They played for me. Majority of them have played for me in the past. You mentioned a Kai Austin. You mentioned Trent Payne, Michael Cerise. Ron Holling. I don't want to leave anybody out. Corey Xavier Main, the X-Man, as I refer to him as. So I really feel, my heart goes out to him in the sense of it was a tough loss. Do I agree that they were beatable as in Madison? Yes, absolutely. I think any team is beatable. It seemed to me based on, and I'm not here to kind of beat a dead horse. I'm just telling you my perspective, my opinion. For example, Kai was dropping passes early. I think he was nervous. The running game really wasn't that established at first. I think they went away from it later on in the game. I think the defense was kind of in the bind after the block punt. And Madison recovered, of course, within, in the red zone. So were mistakes made? Yes. And obviously in the second half, everybody just the nerves calmed down, and they were able to play. They were able to move the ball. I did see that Cerise was, I guess, hurt with his shoulder. Obviously, I'm retired, so I don't really spend day to day with the guys or know what's going on. And I'm not taking anything away from any of the coaches or anything on the staff. I think they're a great staff. I think the student body and the school is great. I just feel like I noticed. I heard on the broadcast from the VHSL. With the Michael Niebrick, that was the last time that they went to UVA, and I was there, and I was part of that staff. Obviously, helped rebuilding these programs. So, I'm not taking all the credit, obviously, but freshman then went to varsity for X amount of years, and then wanted to do the freshman again, and I'm glad. I was happy to be part of these, as I will always consider them the champions in my book. Again, the Michael Cerise, the Trent Payne, the Kai Austin, the JT Prudhoe. I mean, the list goes on and on. Let's not forget Oladipo. I know I'm missing a lot of people right off the bat, but my heart does go out to the seniors, and you can't replace a Trent Payne or Kai Austin or even the X-Man or even a Michael Cerise. So again, I heard that his shoulder was bad, or he shut it down for whatever reason it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I heard later on they were missing a couple of their starters, or not starters, but impact players. For example, I heard, and I could be wrong, I heard Mr. Barabino, which I'm a huge fan of, and I think that's why they had Kai Austin return punts or what have you, or kickoffs. I don't think he played in the game for whatever reason, but they like I said, I think they were nervous putting the coach's hat on. Adam, to be honest with you, I would have called a timeout. I mean, I understand you're down 14, or they marched, Madison got the ball first, right? And they marched down the field. And again, I'm proud of these guys. I'm proud of the program. I'm proud of everything. I'm just, again, analyzing it from my point of view. They came down and they scored first, their first drive, Madison's first drive. I think, and then after the block punt, I think they kind of, they just seemed to be kind of down, and the kids seemed to be kind of bummed out about it. And I would have called a timeout. I understand Coach Stock used a timeout when they were close to the within the in the red zone, and I understand Ty threw an interception. So I mean, hey, it happens, right? But and I'm not here to play Monday morning quarterback, but I would have, in my opinion, I would have done it in a different way. I would have called timeout, brought in the troops together, and say, hey guys, relax, we're still in it. I believe like the coaches, I don't want to speak for them, but we all believe in these guys and everything. So kudos go out to all the players today, not only the seniors, but the juniors and the sophomores and stuff like that. And we even had a brief appearance from the freshman phenomenon of Josiah Mr. Bomey right there. So just so I'm very excited of the future and what the kids hold, and I wish them the very best.
Yeah, certainly they have a lot of guys come back. Of course, Josiah Bomey, you said it a lot. He's kind of the next Trent Payne. Of course, it was great for him to get that development under Trent this year. And of course, someone who won the Regional Defensive Player of the Year and who will probably go on to be All-State and All-Met as well. Of course, Ty Jackson's coming back, really good QB. You have Peyton Holmes at running back. You'll have Zach Hibner at tight end, who I suspect is going to lead the offense more next year with guys like Austin Halloween graduating. On defense, of course, you have a lot of linebackers come back, even though Maine's going to be gone. You have Tran, Gilmore on a D-line coming up, and it's coming back next year. Linebackers, Blaylock, Matthew Holcomb.
And Jack Posednik.
But Jack Posednik.
Don't sleep on the defense nor the weapons that they have. A name that you want to look out for, personally, I think he's going to make an impact, is Ryan Harding. He is kind of the same size as Hibner. Again, I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm just saying based on how they look and stuff like that. He played tight end for me. Great kid. Don't sleep on Mr. Gallant. Camden Gallant that actually played some secondary this year. Quadros. So I think they can develop a little bit of depth. I think there's a little bit of depth, not as compared to the last couple of years, in my opinion, for Lake Braddock, but I think there's a little bit of depth that they can work around that. With the O-line, he was hurt for most of the season, Martin Riberia. So that's someone that you can definitely look at. You got a Kyle Harold who's coming back. Let's see what these young bucks can do. Let's see what another one, Adam Abramovich. I'm mispronouncing that there. Obanovich, I believe, is his name. You would know better than me, Adam. So, I like to see what they can do. Again, you mentioned a Ryan Beck that's coming back. And then of course Jason Tran. So more or less the return, as the kids called it when I was there with you on the broadcast, was the Great Wall of Burke is going to rise. I think again. You have a Mr. Thorley. I don't know if he's going to be doing just kicks or what have you. I know you are losing a Max. Max has been great. I mean, I think Lake Braddock the last X amount of years have been producing great, kickers. You take Cannon's brother, Carson Gallant, who's now at Shenandoah University. You take the E-Man, who's been great, and I caught a clip of his before. And of course, you're losing a Michael Cerise. Before was a Daniel Leposki, and then of course Billy Edwards. But I'm not taking anything away from Ty Jackson. I think Ty Jackson is an amazing young man, very smart, and very athletic. I know he's been. I don't know if you noticed this, Adam, when he was running. I don't think he's 100% from that knee surgery that he had.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take time for him to get that. But once he gets that, I think he's going to be phenomenal. Receiver wise, there's just too many to list. But I think, I mentioned a Baravino. I kind of like the Isaac Ty. That's someone who could, again, I'm not comparing the two, him and Kai Austin. I'm not. He's fast. He runs great. His routes are great. But, I just think, like I said, there's a lot of potential for the upcoming season for the Bruins. I'm not sure about the depth, and I could be wrong.
Yeah. So certainly, do you see that? Of course, you mentioned, how the Bruins have had, certainly a lot of, definitely a lot of depth, more than a lot of other teams these last few years. That's certainly been a reason, in terms of, injury coming up, of course, the sport of football, especially a lot of contact, a lot more injuries are going to happen. So especially, with Bruins with that depth, they've had a lot of really big guys step in, even when some of their starters went down, of course, before in the past. But do you still think they'll get, still be fine with depth next year, regardless of how it turns out?
I think so. There's another name that just popped up that so many guys. Sam Rye was playing running back. I think he's going to be a huge contributor. I don't know exactly. I can't tell you definitively where they're going to place all these guys. I'm just assuming that Sam Rye may be running the ball, or maybe he's playing defense. I know he's done that in JV. He played for me on the offensive line because of, we had a little bit of lack of size on the freshman level. But I think there's a lot of good kids that are coming up. If they, to me, if they stick with it, you still have Cash, a Khalid Cash. Weathers, I believe, is a junior. So that's Weathers is another one. Like I said, there's so many to name. Obviously, go with Quadros, with Xander Quadros. I think Quadros has shown. I've seen it this past summer at the Maryland camp. I took one of my young freshmen up to Maryland to see Billy Edwards, and they have these camps. And I saw Quadros there, and he was doing his thing. I think he's gonna have a breakout year next year. He's getting better every year. He's getting stronger. So, and he does track, or he has done track. I don't know if he's doing that now during the off season. Coach Whitbourne does an amazing job with the off-season conditioning and the weightlifting program. I think the question should be asked, what makes like a Madison get to that next level? And the goal, what I mean by that is the goal is, look, we're talking back-to-back region champs, and that's amazing. And again, I've been through that with this program, with Lake Braddock, with the Niebrick years, where we went all the way to the final, to UVA. I believe we played LC Bird. I could be wrong on that. And then the year after, and I do remember it perfectly well, where Niebrick was in his senior year and they lost, I believe, 10-7 to Battlefield at Lake Braddock. Wow. Yep, and I remember it well, and I'm not trying to call him out. So if he sees this podcast, I apologize. But I think at the time the was Quigley, one of the Quigley brothers. So they were twins who happens to be who were coaches.
I believe it was Tyler.
Yeah. He ran the wrong route or something. It was out and up, and I think Niebrick thought it was just going to be an out or a smoke, as some people call it. That was that interception that cost Braddock the game. And again, I'm not pointing fingers. It was, you're looking at 15 years ago, give or take.
Yeah, I think 2010.
About 14 years ago. So great guys, but what gets them, I think the question again is what gets them over that hump of, okay, hey, look, we've been to the region final, we've won it. Region final, we've won it. District, fantastic. What can we do to get back to the big dance, meaning the state final? We've been to the semifinals back to back. And again, I'm not taking anything away from their achievement, but what can we do? Is it more depth? I thought Lake Braddock had a little bit of depth. Is it the conditioning, as in the weight room? I'm just asking questions like, what does Madison do? Because Madison has been successful these last X amount of years. So what has Madison done that we cannot do? So is it the Little League? Is it the BRYC and the SYC where they're very strong, Madison area, where they have the Vienna, Little League, Pee Wee football there. Is the BRYC or the SYC or BRYC? Yes. So do they need to be kind of like, hey, let's bring some coaches? And I know for a fact that Coach Doc and his crew has been trying to do that. So I think building that foundation and the freshman level, okay. And you see how the growth comes into play, and it can build the depth. It's kind of like baseball, Adam, that are familiar with, where you have the farm league, and then you're building from the farm. That's my opinion.
All right. You mentioned, of course, going back to 2009, 2010, when Niebrick was quarterback. He played at Fordham.
Yes.
Yeah, and of course, it seemed like they had a few good FBS level guys. Last couple of years, we haven't really had. Of course, we had Ben York about a year ago. There hasn't been as much of that. What's really been a difference? From when Coach Doc and Poyfrus was the head coach back then. What do you really think has been the big difference between the two of them, and trying to bring in a talent and just all those things?
Well, before we get to that, Niebrick went to UConn.
Yeah.
And after a year, I think the coach moved. I'm going based on memory, and I know that Niebrick hurt his knee, or he tore his MCL or ACL, what have you. And then he transferred to Fordham, which I thought he did a fabulous job with that, and he's won a lot of awards there. Always been a great athlete.
Yeah, Hall of Famer at Fordham.
Yeah. In regards to the recruit, I give credit to both coaches. I see it more. I don't honestly remember as much from Coach Porthras. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I mean, what I do remember is you take a Andrew Weininger.
Yeah, that's a throwback.
That guy was, to me, like the Marvel character, the Juggernaut. So he would run right through a wall, and the Weiningers have, great family, great everything. So he went to William and Mary, if my memory is correct. And of course, he's coaching now at Penn State, the wide receiver.
Zanellato.
Yeah, Zanellato. Great dad. His dad was I worked with his dad as a math teacher during my internship with West Springfield. So, and then on Coach Stock's side, of course, yes, you have the UVA with Ben York. You have Billy Edwards with Maryland, which he originally went to Wake Forest, I believe.
Yeah, deep kind of.
Yeah. So therefore, and then Daniel Lepowski, who was at Delaware, and as you know, recently he has entered the portal. To my understanding, he is or has been offered, I believe, a Tennessee Tech, which is not a bad school in my opinion. And you had guys to go to JMU. Again, a lot of things are just not registering in my mind right now or my stuff, but you have great running backs and guys who have gone to bigger and better things. I think it's gotten a little bit different because of the portal and the recruiting. So it just, I think it varies from what took place 14, 15 years ago to now, but you got to give credit where credit's due. I just don't think they're recruiting that much here in Northern Virginia. You take a Robinson where you had a Tristan Lee who plays for Clemson, which Clemson's currently in the playoff, the college football playoffs. So a huge guy. I mean, when I was teaching there, I knew his little brother, who's no longer little, let's just say, and I knew who Tristan was very well. Nice guy. But back to Lake Braddock, I mean, Billy, you take Billy Edwards, who's at Maryland. I mean, he does stuff that's on and off the field. He gives back to the community, and that's just to name a few. But I think with the recruiting stuff in regards to for colleges, I think they both, well, again, Porthras did a great job, and I think Coach Stock is currently doing a great job. He's inviting a lot of the college coaches in. The kids sit down, and the college recruiters go over, hey, this is what the school is, what our program's about, kind of selling their stuff to the kids, and ultimately it's their decision. I'm not taking anything away from Chattanooga University with Mr. Gallant. I'm not taking anything away from, I believe, was Trent offered Elon, correct?
Yes.
So there's a couple guys going to Elon. And again, William and Mary with, which I happen to be here in Williamsburg right now, with Kai Austin and the X-Man, Xavier Maine. I mean, these are guys you don't just pick off the street. You know what I mean? It's just what the program at Lake Braddock has done. And again, kudos to Coach Ober with the receivers, the strength and conditioning program with Coach Whitbourne, overall with Coach Stock and the rest of the crew there. I think they've done a great job. We'll see what happens for the new guys that are coming up, but signing day is in a couple months, and we'll see what happens. Who knows? Trent Payne might be offered a D1 thing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to talk about their grades because I don't know it, but obviously you need your grades. You need the obviously the athleticism and the success, which Braddock has shown.
All right. Kind of going back to Poythress, do you think, of course, Poythress, of course, coached that 09 state finals team, they lost Thomas Dale, and he made stakes the last,
Thomas Dale, that was it, yeah. Thomas Dale.
Yeah, Thomas Dale. And then
Birds, I apologize.
No, it's all right. And then 2010, they made the state semis again, back-to-back regional title finals, and then they won it. What do you think is a significant difference between those two and kind of, like what, what was it though Porphyris, I should say. Need to get my pronunciation right on that one.
Sure.
To make the state finals and play close with some of those best teams in Virginia, compared to the Braddock teams now where, last year they didn't play maybe exactly how closely they want to Highland Springs, who's one of the best teams in the state, or maybe a Madison this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, you got to keep in mind, and I was there, you got to keep in mind that they played Battlefield back-to-back. They lost to the second one. We discussed that earlier on the second state semifinal. But on the first one, they went to Battlefield. And I believe it was a Monday night game. Don't quote me on that, Adam, on that, because, again, we're talking 14, 15 years ago. But I was there, and they went into overtime. And Niebrick scrambled. I do remember the play. He was rolling out, looking for anybody to hit, and he throws a touchdown to a Mr. Williams. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember his first name. He will always come in the locker room wearing shades, so I call him Hollywood. He caught him right in the middle of the back of the end zone there, and the crowd obviously went crazy. And I think that team had a really, really good shot to win the state championship. In my opinion, I don't think he had the depth, because you had a Renzi, you had a Weininger, which I've mentioned before, and this is guys that I can just remember off the top of my head.
Brandon Johnson,
and his dad, his late father. He coached with me. He passed away a few years ago. Great man, great family too. So I don't think they had the depth that Braddock did this past season. Now, would it have been a different game if Cerise was healthy? I think, in putting my coaching hat on, and again, would be my decision. I'm not disgrading Coach Doc's decision. You go with a hot hand with Ty. For me, I would have went with the experience with Michael Cerise. That I've said that publicly within the broadcast when we were doing the season. So, or maybe switch it up, or maybe go a little bit more Wildcat. I know they only ran it once during the Madison game. And people are, I've got some of the managers and I've got a lot of the players talk to me and say, no, man, we were robbed from the first down. It was very close. I'll be honest with you. But again, I wasn't on the field, so I couldn't know, but based on what I saw on TV, it was close. But I think we could have ran a little bit more of that, more screens. I think it could have been a little bit more motions to see if they're playing zone or playing man or what have you. Again, that's my opinion. I know they threw a screen to I believe Mr. Holmes. That went pretty far. But the difference of the two is I think Coach Porthras did not have the depth where Coach Doc does. And then so you can rotate, but you're also talking about a 15-year difference of things. The innovation of the sport kind of like has evolved. So I have to say, hey, they're both not only great coaches, don't get me wrong, but it's just who has the advantage. It was a toss up. Like I said, it was a toss up because they won in overtime. That's how they won their state semifinals. So it was a little bit of a toss up. And to be honest with you, Adam, I believe it was at a neutral site.
Yeah, Liberty High School. Because Braddock was still on the grass turf back then, so they went down to Liberty to play on the turf field.
Right. So I think there was a situation where I think Battlefield didn't have their field or something. I don't quote me on that. I do remember it was a neutral site, what you mentioned, and I thought it was great. I think I remember. I think because of the weather, it was raining that week or what have you, and I think Battlefield had a grass field at the time, and you mentioned about Lake Braddock as well, before the county came in and started getting everybody turf field, you know what I mean? But I think they did play on a turf field that semifinal, and it was in overtime. So there's a lot of things that, again, Monday morning quarterback, there's a lot of things that could have changed, that could have happened, this past Saturday. But I'm not taking anything away from the kids. I think they did a hell of a job, and they had a great year. It was tough in the beginning. They lost to Madison, they lost to Westfield. So, like I said, I think it's a little bit, did they have a chance? I really did believe in my heart that the kids and the program had a great chance, and to win this game. But to answer your question, I think they're kind of even. They're kind of even.
All right, very good stuff, Coach Laguna. And when we just have John Fedor coming on.
Here we go. There he is.
Well, welcome, John. How are you?
What's up, guys? I'm doing well.
Back from some nice food at Smith's and Clarkson's.
Nice to see you as well, Coach. Yeah, I'm chomping on a nice sandwich right now.
So, my friend, I love to hear it. So we were just talking about, kind of the Madison game this past Saturday and how Lake Braddock lost and how their season is over. John, what are your takeaways from that game?
I think he's still chewing his doggy bag there.
Give me a second.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. So my takeaways, I would agree with Coach in terms of even if we were able to get that first down there, I think it's too easy to just blame games on refereeing. I know that usually you rather do that than blame your own players, because obviously they're your players and you want to remain, like having a respectful and good relationship with them. But I feel like overall the lead that Madison got out to at the start there, even if all that stuff had gone our way, it may have just been too big to sort of surmount.
Yeah, and that's why I was saying, Adam, I putting the coach's hat on, I would have called timeout, being down, let's stop the bleeding kind of thing. Let's regroup. You see that a lot in basketball and college basketball and stuff like that. Hey, look, the team goes on a run, in basketball, right? So, hey, let's call timeout. Let's reset here and see what happens. I think, like I said, in the second half, Braddock started to move the ball a little bit better, and then I think the nerves got to him in the beginning of the game. Just like again, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, but just like they did with Highland Springs, I think they were a little bit nervous in the beginning of the Highland Spring game, as well as this past Saturday's game. But I think if you had stopped the bleeding there and called timeout, and that's my opinion, just to kind of like, hey guys, relax, we're still in it. Don't need to, hit the panic button. I think it would have been, I think they would have had the game plan like, okay, hey, look, we're going to start rocking and rolling.
Yeah, certainly. I see, that blocked field goal, certainly to me, that blocked punt, that was kind of a difference maker in the game. I think it was really where, where the Bruins got, talked about them being really nervous. I really think that was a point, because, that's probably the least chance, in terms of possibility in terms of that happening. You don't expect, blocked punt go up in the air. Madison goes back and scores it for a touchdown. The Bruins, I'm pretty sure, were coming into that game, a little more confident. But then again, that happened. And now it's just like, that point, just like, it feels like we're down by 100, It feels like we're Freedom versus Colgan, a year ago when they destroyed them by like 100 points. It kind of felt like that. They kind of felt like that point in the sense it just was not going to be good. And it's just that maybe, this is not our game. Like you said, that's probably why a lot of mistakes were made. Of course, in the second half, they try to, do some stuff a little bit. But again, just they needed to, again, you were also talking about this. They needed to mix it up more. The run game. From what I saw, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. You talk about them trying to be more creative. Maybe a run game. It didn't seem like to me they didn't really trust it much. I mean, they didn't use it even on 1 yard line. They didn't convert really. It seemed like they were giving Kai Austin, Holly, a lot of targets. Now, no knock on them. Kai Austin had an amazing game. I think he had the most yards and in a playoff game in Lake Braddock history, as I saw on the stat site the other day. Or I believe it was today, actually. And so, no knock on him. He had a great game. Ty Jackson, I think, did everything he could. Robert Holleen did good. But again, I think especially, where's the run game? We heard this on All Hitches. Our friends Coach Dash, Coach Mesa over there do a amazing job over there. Coach Dash made a point, saying, if there's no, it's going to be really hard to win against Mass and don't establish a run game, and the Bruins, we talk about being one-dimensional. It kind of felt like they were one-dimensional for a while. It really felt like, they just kept rewinding it over and over again. To me, just, throwing the ball up in the air, hoping to be really aggressive. And I don't blame them for being really aggressive. Of course, sure. With a team like Madison's defense, Dominic Nicely, who's going to hurt you. Maybe if the Bruins struggles with a run stopping this year, not Nicely being the explosive running back he is, so he's going to be at the FBS level soon. I feel like the Bruins, we're really going to the air and trying to get everything they could out of Jackson. And I won't take them away from that. I think it was a great strategy. I don't disagree with them, starting Jackson in that state semis game. I feel like with his arm gives him the best chance to utilize, Kai Austin, Robert Holleen, to the best of their ability, really get downfield, can score fast points for him. Jackson had proven against Madison before, so I really feel like, going that game, you also have a momentum too, where he had a solid performance back in week 2 with that. But again, with the running backs, that's where, again, a lot of those Wildcats, could have come into play. Maybe you could have seen Bordeaux, you could have seen Peyton Holmes, but again, you talk about, they need to have more creativity, and they all, here's another point on All Hitches. They talked about, they liked what they saw from a passing game.
Sure.
Yeah, up in the air, going to Austin Holly. They liked what they saw, probably no short passes, some of the long balls that Jackson was flicking out there to Austin and Holly in the game.
Sure.
But again, got a question, what is the Bruins offense been all season? It just hasn't been them. You've had Bordeaux there, who's had over 1,000 yards this year, who's had a bunch of touchdowns.
Yeah, not just that, but also maybe incorporate that Peyton Holmes a little bit more.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot this season. They go back and forth between them. Power, thunder and lightning, good, really good mix of power and speed you could have gone to there. Where was that? So kind of, so I can, wonder, why are they on a team if they're not playing?
Right. I think they didn't utilize Hibner that much, the tight end.
That's something I saw too. He hasn't really been utilized a lot these last 2 games, as a matter of fact.
Right. So, and then the quick wide receiver screens to the outside, which I know JD is aware of, the play call. I'm not going to say it on the air, what the play call is, of course, but he knows exactly what the wide receiver is. I mean, just to kind of pull the defense up a little bit and then take the long shot. To me, I mean, the only guys that and he was hitting Austin on that comeback route or curl, whatever you want to refer to it as. And as some coaches call it a different route. For me, it's a comeback. But anyway, he was hitting that all day. Tied to Austin in the second half. Even in the first half, I know Kai didn't catch those balls. Again, I thought the nerves hit a little bit. But didn't really, like I said, could have used Hibner a little bit more. Hibner's a great receiver. He's a great all overall guy, blocking, receiving. I mean, that family tree is amazing. So, but yeah.
Do you really think he could have been a big X factor? You of course mentioned his blocking. if you really want to open up a running lane for Bordeaux, Holmes, or even Brown Callanan, I don't see why he could have been playing both ways too, because you had Xavier Maine, who's really just been playing linebacker all year. All of a sudden, he's getting more catches and, targets in the playoffs as receiver, like he was doing, he's been doing the last couple of years. So, you wonder, could have maybe Hibner been using that spot too? What do you think on that, about that?
I think he could have been, but again, we could have used, in my opinion, and this is something that I know JD is aware of, could have used a Ryan Harding, kind of like this again, the same, kind of like physical shape. To me, almost if not the same skill. I think Hibner has a little bit more experience and a little bit more skill. And again, I'm not knocking Ryan at all about that. Because Hibner has been doing it more and has more reps, during game reps and stuff like that. But they did put in Xavier Maine. I believe he scored a touchdown in that game. So, yeah, I agree that it could have been, utilize, Hibner more or what have you. But the other thing I didn't mention, I liked when they went empty. Okay, so again, if Ty was 100%, and again, I wish him the best with his knee and stuff like that, and I know he did the best that he could. But if Ty was 100% and you guys went empty, now you're talking about a mobile quarterback plus 5 receivers. You mentioned a Robert Helene. You mentioned, you can even put a Peyton Holmes out there or JT. And the X-Man, you could put Hibner out there, and of course Kai Austin. And again, I know Baravino wasn't available. Maybe whatever, or that Isaac Ty. I know he played a little bit late in the game. Was he ready? He'll definitely be ready next year. So it's just a lot of things that could have happened. I mentioned JD. I mentioned earlier about motion. I think if you motion the receivers across, I think that there wasn't as much, maybe 1 or 2. And again, I could be wrong, but and again, I'm not knocking Coach Cullen. I think he's done an amazing job, and with what he has and his scheme. I'm just giving, another perspective.
Yeah, and you mentioned motion, Coach. Definitely saw a lot more of that from the offense of Madison than we did Lake Braddock. And most of the time when that Madison offense is doing a motion, they're about to hand that ball off to one of their running backs, whether it's Nicely or they had a few others.
Matthew Weiler, another one.
They had Weiler and maybe one other, I don't know. Sort of spell him for a bit because obviously he can't get all the carries, even though he might want to. But
sure.
But like, just whenever they would motion during that game, you know how on the sideline you call run pass to sort of help the defense.
Sure.
Just before the play, when they were motioning, I would just be calling run, and they would be running the ball every single time that they would be motioning it. So that's definitely a cue that the defense could have used, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd agree with you on maybe them utilizing the motion more. Obviously, for a lot of that game, Madison was able to use it to their benefit, being able to move the ball down the field easier. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like, you mentioned emotion. We've seen Robert Holly motion so much throughout the season. Yeah. That's something that the Bruins have incorporated into their offense every single game. That's part of their daily game plan. And it just seemed like they kind of went, they kind of went away from that game plan. Mentioned emotions. Where is the run game? I think Bordeaux and Holmes only had a combined 11 carries. Usually they get about an average of 20 carries per game. And even though, you like what you saw, again, you still have to mix it up, especially if a talented as team as Madison. You can't just be running the same thing, especially against Madison's defense. They're going to make you pay. They made the Bruins hurt.
Madison, of course, blitzed a few times throughout the game. Could there have been a little bit of adjustment, which they did, which Lake Braddock did later on. maybe incorporate a little bit more play action. And that's only if, with the running back, that's only if, or even if it was a jet sweep to maybe a Kai Austin, kind of a play action. Again, and then turn that into a tight end screen, something that I know JD is aware of it because his Detroit Lions do that.
Yeah.
Or play action if the running game, they went away from it early, and I said, because again they dig themselves a little bit of a hole, being down 14, being down 21. I think it was they were, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was down 14, and then I think Braddock at times would go 3 straight pass games. So it was panic mode, and they're just like pass. So they went away from the run. But then even when they got towards the end of the first half, they were about to score. You understand? Ty, intercepted the ball. That's when I would have thrown in a wildcat. I mean, you're at the 1. I would have thrown in a wildcat with you had a Trent Payne as one of your blockers. You have a Brown Callahan, etc. So, that's just my opinion, but that's the creativity. You asked me that earlier, Adam. That's the creativity I would have personally used if I was calling it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Jackson kind of having leg problem? Now Bruins run a lot of RPO stuff. As we know, that's been part of Coach Stock's, high tempo offense. In his Bruins tenure as a head coach, I'm pretty sure that was something he had over at Unity Reed when still was Stonewall Jackson. A decade ago. Do you really think that Ty Jackson, a torn meniscus, do you really think that has been a problem? That game, they didn't really want to risk it, and maybe kind of go away from those RPOs.
RPO would have been great, but again, you have to establish the run.
The play action.
Once you establish the run, those linebackers are going to start feeding into it, and then you have Ty or even Cerise over the top. And
then Cerise wasn't in there too.
Right. So, that's one thing. With Ty, I think, I get he's a phenomenal quarterback. Don't get me wrong, and great family. I met his mom again in Maryland. I talked to Ty. Not as much as obviously the coaches, but great young man. I think they may have rushed it a little bit early, and that's why I suggested, if it was me, and I wasn't going to say that, hey, Ty wouldn't play on Saturday. I'm just saying that for me personally, if I was, if I had the keys of the car, I would have definitely had Michael Cerise because of the experience. He did it last year with what do you call it, Highland Springs. So I at least would have, maybe intertwined it kind of thing and put him in. But, we've seen, to me, and again, I'm not taking anything away from Ty Jackson, but Michael Cerise and JD is aware of this. To me, he's a winner. If you're looking at the guy that is going to take the last shot, of the game, you go to Michael Jordan, right? You want to put the ball on Michael Jordan, etc. I think he is somewhat of the Michael Jordan, like, okay, hey, look, I'm not taking anything away from Ty. I think Ty's going to be amazing. But because of his limited ability with the meniscus, as you mentioned, Adam, I think that would have been the great thing if Cerise was healthy. I know he was hurt, but if that was the case, I think you're looking at Lake Braddock being at JMU.
Yeah, but even with maybe again the RPOs may not working because again the injuries of Jackson, Cerise, of course with that shoulder problem, but there are certainly still some ways. Again, we go back to a Wildcats. Heck, I've been even thinking, do the Eagle special, do a tush push. I'm just do a tush push. Where was the berserk formation that we saw versus right. I believe it was West Springfield or Mount Vernon, one of those playoff games. Mm-hmm. Run that. That's something that they've been running. Maybe that was the time to pull out. You got a lot of power there. Trying to get over. Very tough Madison D line with guys like Caden Green. I believe Matthew Vachka. I mean, Jackson Ambrose, I believe he's out linebacker, but, just overall really tough Madison defense. There are certainly things that they could have done there to overcome some of those 1 yard, some of those 1 yard line deficits, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. So we could have had the Bruin push or something. I don't know. Again, my hat goes off to all the kids who worked very hard, and believe me, JD, I know you know this for a fact. I mean, they're out there in the summer, in the 2 days, in that heat, because I remember it as well. Thank God we went early in the day, because once it hit that afternoon in the summertime, my friends, I mean, with the humidity and stuff like that. So kudos to them, kudos to the coaching staff, and let's not forget the athletic training staff. Miss K, which and then Miss R, is it? Because she got married, so Miss A is now. Is it Miss R? Okay. Again, I don't want to butcher anybody's name. They'll give me a hard time about that, but they always do a great job. And again, maybe it sounds biased. I would have to say one of the best, if not the best, athletic training staff in the region.
Oh, of course, yeah, they've done a great job.
Yeah, for sure. But Coach, earlier you mentioned, of course, my Detroit Lions doing pretty well right now. But I wonder, and you can put your input on this, talking about next season. Obviously, the Lions, they have a lot of 2 tight end formations where they both Laporta and Wright. And do you think that maybe you start seeing more plays with both Harding and Hibner in next season?
There is a formation that I've been reading up about for the last couple of years called the shotgun double wing. Double wing meaning that the 2 tight ends, of course, is off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And I see it being effective. Again, I'm just take it with a grain of salt regarding to what I'm not trying to tell Coach Cullen what to do at all. I have talked to him a long time ago regarding, hey, what do you call, we have it called a Y for our tight end and call it a different letter for the additional tight end. So I think they could use that and still run their normal package, offensive package or plays out of that. But now you're having, again, a Harding and a Hibner as part of that. I don't know what their plan is, obviously, but there was another. We still have Titus Aku, correct?
He's graduating.
Oh, he's graduating. Okay.
Yeah, Titus Ackle is graduating.
He played on your team, JD?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I don't remember. You have to think. Oh, there was another young man that I didn't mention, Mr. Pulliam.
Oh yeah.
So he's somebody that again, you've got a lot of guys that are coming in next year who's going to make an impact. The problem that I see is the depth. I don't know if they have enough depth. If someone gets hurt, and obviously, a little bang and bruises here, we can, tolerate that. But if someone really gets hurt, that's my concern. Again, Martin Ribeiro was hurt. Kyle is there. We've got other guys that can contribute. Personally, me, I think that Wyatt Holcomb could be a receiver. He's a very great athlete. I would see if he could try out at receiver. He's got great hands. He's got amazing speed. We'll see. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have him as their backup quarterback, but you have quarterbacks that are coming up, especially who played briefly. Well, I coached briefly this year. Evan Fitzgerald. I think he's got the arm. I think he can read a little bit, read the defense a little bit. And I know they brought him up to JV. And then you have a Nathan Tarr. He's a good kid as well. So a lot of the freshmen that are going to be coming up going to be sophomores. Majority of them probably are going to be playing JV. But again, you got to see what Madison has been doing. Adam, how many times have they won regions?
5 years in a row.
What? How many?
5 since 2020.
5 years in a row. So they're doing something. And again, I'm not saying that Lake Braddock can't do it. I think Lake Braddock's got a shot next year to be a three-peat, but which would be amazing. But I think it has to boil down to what are they doing that is making them successful 5 years, 5 years in a row. If you're a coach, in my opinion, and you see a successful program, you take the Detroit Lions. Hey, what are they doing? They can, maybe I'll take a little sprinkle of what they're doing and bring it here.
Yeah,
I think it's the little league, the lower leagues. So the BRYC, I think, and again, I think they're working on that to kind of get on board and say, hey, this is our product. And then just like Vienna does, the Vienna Little League football, and they bring those guys up through the chain. So they have their system. They know exactly how to line up and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I think that for next season, more of a question will be offensively, even though, of course, you've got Jackson, Hibner, and then Holmes, all of them returning.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part, the offensive linemen who played this year, well, they still have a lot of plentiful offensive linemen who have played in a varsity game at least. But the big question will be who will step up at wide receiver. And then, like, for this season, the questions were defensively because it was still sort of young. I think the defense is definitely going to take a big step up next year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot more experience on that end, so that they should have a pretty good year next year. But definitely questions at the wide receiver position for him.
Breaking news: Billy Edwards plans to enter the transfer portal.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't talk to Billy. I wish him the very, very best, obviously. Great young man, as I mentioned earlier in the show. I don't know if he's happy at Maryland or not. I know that there's another quarterback starting in front of him. I don't know if Billy's hurt. Again, I did see Billy maybe the first 6 games, which I think he is, in my opinion, a very good. He could probably be drafted by the NFL, if not be a backup. I mean, nobody wants to be a backup, obviously, but just to have your name called, in the NFL draft, I think is a great accomplishment. But and he's got he's very smart. He very well accomplished young man. He graduated early with his undergrad degree, which I'm very happy for him about that. So we'll see. I don't know where he plans on going, but I wish him the very best.
Yeah, and a few months ago with the CFL negotiation list coming out, he was on the list for the Edmonton Elks. So that is certainly a second option if he is not able to find a home in the NFL once his college career is over. But it will be interesting because for the games he started, he definitely showed a lot of promise this season.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, Maryland didn't really do well when it came to Big Ten play, and
right,
which Big Ten is a tough conference, and Billy Edwards starting in his first season ever at the collegiate level. Of course, he was mainly a backup through the last couple of years he's had, but I I think with what he's shown, definitely going to be a starter at a different program, or at least competing to be one. But
Absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see what types of programs sort of try and get him to transfer there, because I don't know if it's going to be any big name schools, but definitely some that want a decently experienced quarterback to sort of lead them to a bowl game or maybe
Sure.
even the playoffs. So good for him.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that he's not staying in Maryland for whatever reason that is. Again, obviously we don't know, but obviously we wish him the best. But again, on his resume, limited time or limited stay at Wake Forest, now a limited stay here a year or two at Maryland. So I don't know his eligibility thing is, but
1 year left.
he's got 1 year left. Okay, so
Yeah.
I think he can go into, if he plans, and again, I'm not I'm not Billy obviously, but if he plans to go to the next level, you got a great young man. I mentioned not only on the field but off the field. He does stuff for the community and stuff like that. Again, I wish him the very best.
Of course, one of the better Lake Braddock quarterbacks to come out. He's been amazing. He's probably the closest that of any Bruin alumni has probably come the closest to, probably getting a bit of consideration being, especially if the FBS will maybe get into the NFL, and you probably
Sure.
Get a really big shot next year. He's going to test his luck. His last year of eligibility. And teams, who knows, might go out another season. Ball out.
Right.
A lot of NFL teams will be looking at him. He could, and at that point, you'll probably be seeing, maybe he could become the first Lake Braddock alumni ever who played football to play in the NFL. I think he could certainly do it.
Well, West Springfield had one by a Mr. Renner. His father was a coach. I coached with him for that 1 year at Lake Braddock, but Renner, I believe, played for Tampa Bay. I'm not 100% sure, or did he play for Carolina? Maybe the Panthers, one of those teams. But yeah, I think Billy has a great shot. I really do.
Yeah, for sure.
And I just wanted to add that possibly a second guy that could be joining him at the NFL level, depending on how next year goes, could be Matthew Hibner as well. But obviously Hibner is 1 more year of eligibility after this. Will be interesting to see what he does, because in a backup role with SMU this year, he's played pretty well.
Yeah,
I know he had about like 80-yard reception. That's pretty good.
He's had 200 yards, and with their starter RJ Maryland, of course, you probably recognize the name. His father was Russell Maryland, the Dallas Cowboy defensive tackle. But their starter RJ Maryland at tight end out for the rest of the season, so Matthew Hibner will be their starter through the playoffs. And then, as I mentioned, 1 more year of college eligibility. Well, Maryland's probably going to come back, so it'll be interesting to see if Hibner decides to enter his name into the portal to try.
Yeah, he did last year. Of course, he went from Michigan. Now he's at Southern Methodist.
Sure.
Yeah. Are they even in the playoffs? I'm not even following. I know, are they?
Yeah, Southern Methodist.
They are?
Not Michigan, but of course SMU.
Yeah, SMU.
Yeah, Southern Methodist barely made the playoffs this year, but I think they deserved it. Could just be biased because I really like Matthew Hibner, but
yeah,
I'm really happy to see what he and Billy Edwards is doing, but especially Hibner, because he gets to showcase his skills at more of a national level in the coming weeks here. They get to play Penn State, so that would be a big one.
Yeah, you got Hibner versus Rojas.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm going out on a limb, JD. SMU, if it's so I don't know. It's played at Penn State, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know the turf. Is it turf or grass? If it's grass, I think SMU will struggle. If it's turf, that might be an upset, my friends.
It is natural grass.
Oh, okay. Because SMU struggled with Clemson because of not only the experience, but of course, I believe they played on grass. When you play in SMU, which they're very comfortable on turf, look out. They're a different animal. The ponies are like stallions. Trust me.
Yeah.
So,
but that'll be a big one. It will be the first playoff game of the day on December 21st on TNT and MAC.
Yep.
So good luck to them. But anyway, let's get back to Lake Braddock now.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts you guys have?
No, it was a great season. Kudos to everyone, the coaching staff from the top all the way to the bottom. And again, not to mention or not with what the athletic trainers do, Miss K and Miss R, I believe. They do an amazing job. They get these guys and they've been doing it for quite some time. I'm glad that everything worked out there, and we'll see what happens in the off season. My understanding is they're going to wait until after the holidays, and then they're going to get back to, hey, pumping that iron, and get back to it. It is as a retired coach, I know exactly how it is. We need to. We're almost at the Christmas break, or winter break, I should say, and which is next week. And then, of course, you've got my birthday next Friday. So after that, no kids are allowed in school and stuff like that. You've got basketball, of course, both the boys and the girls. But, it's good for the coaches, especially to recharge the batteries. And then you get back at it in the new calendar year.
Yeah. What I gotta say is I'm really gonna miss being a manager and a broadcaster here, even if I wind up coming back at some point. I mean, obviously it's not gonna be the same. Like I'm an actual student here right now, and
Me too.
well, yeah, I've seen you at school, but like you guys get what I mean. Like
yeah.
Even if I return, it'll be as an alumni, and it just won't feel the same as being around these guys right now, being like brothers. But what I think is for next season, hopefully they can continue where they've sort of left off these last couple of years, maybe even get to that big game at the end, the state championship. So
yeah. That is the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
All right. It's been great having you guys on the last hour, of course, JD. Of course, mentioned I'm going to miss it too. Of course, it's been a great job, you guys have done. I couldn't have had a better booth without you guys. Really blessed, really thrilled I could share a booth with you guys for a couple of years. I'm going to miss it in the sense that, a lot of good memories, of course, calling back-to-back regional titles. The first year I'm in the booth, win their first regional title in 13 years. Of course, this year was awesome, really memorable as well. And of course, I don't even know, I would love to come back as a broadcaster next year. I don't know. Maybe in the future, maybe who knows, I come back, as a guy in NFHS. Maybe I come back, if Game Day Magazine gets up again, get on that old back in the day. That's what they would do. I believe it was Friday game of the week. You'd see 2013. It would be Lake Braddock Westfield or Lake Braddock Stonebridge. Ooh, my mic I knocked over there. But, maybe that comes back. Certainly the options are open, but we'll see. Only time will tell.
Yeah, and absolutely. Finally, I'll say this. It was an honor and a pleasure being with the two of you. I do obviously see you in the halls at times. My door is always open to you guys now and forever. It was a pleasure working with the two of you every Friday night. I think we had a lot of fun. Hopefully we can do it again in the future. I understand, alumni and stuff like that, but I wish you both not only success but the best in what you do. If you guys decide to pursue this career to the next level. I think we've met a lot of celebrities within our time. Chad Ricardo, just to mention one, the local broadcaster here at DC 5, the superintendent that we had, even our own Miss Kearns, the principal, joining us in the booth. We try to make it kind of a Adam, JD, and Laguna cast, like the Manning cast kind of thing. But I think that was amazing. But also shout out to Mr. Agner, who set up the whole shebang, and everybody in the department, that kind of helped us out. But yeah, I'm definitely gonna miss you guys. And I wish you guys the best.
Gonna miss you too, Coach.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
We are gonna get into some Wake Braddock boys and girls basketball talk. So we're gonna do some non-football talk now. If you guys would like to stay on, you can.
I'm going to step away because I can't even spell basketball. To be no, I'm kidding. I'm not familiar with the basketball program. I know that they do a lot stuff here. With the team. I don't even know their records and stuff like that. I know a little bit of the girls program. I think some of the students on that team are in my classes or were former students of mine. But I'll try the best to kind of get out and attend a game. I know that, Adam, you do the broadcasting for the basketball.
Yep, that's new for me this year.
Yeah, who knows? I might swing by and just to kind of say hi, but not really familiar with the game. Obviously, I've dedicated my life with pretty much on football, so I don't want to sound like, hey, I know what I'm talking about. But so I'm going to step away, and you guys have a great night. And JD, make sure you beat the Bills.
Yep. We can. All
right, guys. I'll catch you later.
All right. Thank you so much for coming on.
Anytime. Take care. All right. Bye.
Bye.
Adam, I am going to stay on for a little bit longer because compared to Coach, I have a little bit more knowledge about our basketball program. I actually watched your game that you commentated here recently, which you're gonna recap here in a sec. But haven't watched any of the girls' basketball games yet this season. But of course, I'll make sure to tune in. I know that they're sort of struggling as well recently, but hopefully both teams can get back to it.
Yep. Yeah, we'll get into that. Of course, the next game for boys basketball. Of course, they won 2 nights ago for their home opener of the season. A 59-53 thrilling overtime win over Marshall. We'll get into that in just a moment. Of course, unfortunately, the girls lost at Marshall 45-37. We're going to start with boys first, then we'll go to the girls. So be sure stay tuned for that. And, of course, the next game that I will be broadcasting will be tomorrow night when Wake Braddock girls basketball hosts a very awesome Edison Eagles team. That's going to be a very interesting game to see. Wake Braddock, Coach Reed and Coach Diane Lewis going at it, two of the best coaches in the year. Coach Lewis has been doing it for a long time, so make sure you tune into that 7:30 p.m. on a Wake Braddock student broadcasting YouTube channel, your source for all Wake Braddock-led broadcast with me on it, and of course, the source for all Wake broadcasting for all Lake Braddock Sports. So be sure to check it out. Again, thank you very much, JD, for tuning in. Hopefully you can join me on a broadcast at some point later on this season.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's get into this. So, of course, we were just talking about how with the boys it was a thrilling 59-53 win. That was a really big statement win for a Bruins team. What a way to win your home opener. They were down, a lot of the game, most of it, and then all of a sudden they came back in the fourth quarter. They tied it at 52 when overtime, they were able to score 7 points in the 4 minutes that they had in overtime and beat a very, very talented Edison team that has a lot of depth around it. So a lot of guys on the bench in there. Anderson Crisco on the inside, Trey Leonardo.
You mean that they beat a talented Marshall team? Edison's the
yeah, I meant Marshall. I beg your pardon, Marshall. Marshall is what I meant to say.
Sorry. But one thing I'll say is overall I was pretty surprised with that win. Obviously, these last couple of years have not been great with Lake Braddock basketball, and Marshall, I've heard, has a pretty good, if not at least average, program in the game of basketball. They certainly seem to have a lot more fans than we had show up, so obviously much more dedicated to basketball than we are as a school, it seems.
Yeah, pretty strong. Definitely have been more consistent in boys basketball. As of the last couple of years, they've finished. They've made the Liberty District Finals 3 straight times. I think all 3 times they finished as a runner-up, but they're still up there. Definitely one of the better teams over in Northern Region. Of course, they have to deal with Jordan Scott, South Lake Seahawks. Of course, one of the best prospects in the whole country, the Michigan commit. You have a really good Westfield team over there. You got a really good Madison team, really good Wakefield team. Certainly a lot of good teams over there in that Northern region. But again, the Bruins came back and, won their first game against a very good Marshall team. Big statement win. I'm pretty sure that's a game that a lot of people were expecting. This Bruins team was kind of, maybe a bit inexperienced compared to the experience that Marshall's had. But Bruins, again, really came out, really remained calm, composed throughout the game to make a really good comeback. Especially in that fourth quarter, there were times, where it seemed like, they were gonna, may start losing by a big margin, especially when they were down by 6-7 points several times in that game, early on. The Bruins came up a lot of good clutch shooting from there, a lot of really good free-pointers, especially mentioned names Dean Johnson, who, of course, I'm familiar with because he's a baseball outfielder with Lake Braddock. Yeah. He was really good from a wing. You have Nick Tarr, the tall senior guard man. He was good. I believe he was 3 for 4 on his three-pointers. Excellent game from him. You have a new guy, Ty Clayton. Shout out to him, who's in my econ class. He's been awesome. A transfer from Rock Creek Christian Academy, which is actually where Ty Jackson came from, and the Bruins football quarterback that we were talking a lot about earlier. So those are 2 really good athletes that have come out of Rock Creek Christian, which is now a defunct school now. And new guy in the block, making a name. 21 points. This last game, and then he had 20 points in, I believe, the season opener versus Wake, a very, very good Wakefield team. And then, Nick Tarr, of course, had 19 points too as well, who is actually in our, I believe it was our sports entertainment marketing class last year. So big shout out to those 2 studs, but Ty Clayton becoming a big scorer for Bruins. Coach Mitras really, it seems like they're pulling them back, even though it's through 3 games. But, so far, it really seems like they're rebounding well after that awful, 3-24 season last year. Arguably the worst season that Coach Mitras has had in his career, one of the worst seasons in Lake Braddock boys basketball history. But then Bruins are just really coming in, roaring back this year all of a sudden. Mitras, of course, talked about the calmness and composure that his guys had. It seems like they're ready to succeed.
Yeah, definitely.
Big time.
And you mentioned all those guys, but you saw a ton of guys on the bench, and you think, with all due respect to the guys who played against Marshall, like some of these guys aren't even the top guys that we have. A lot of those guys who have also been playing football or other sports, or maybe are just sort of getting back from injuries, maybe.
Yeah, of course you mentioned. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, like you've got top guy in Xavier Maine. You were probably just about to mention him. Brown Callanan, he's sort of getting right back into basketball. I think that this team is definitely going to be a lot better than it was last season for sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely. Yeah, I think it will definitely be a bit underrated. I know in the Patriot District there were a couple teams that took some big hits to just Bishop O'Connell. Bishop O'Connell just, I don't want to say robbed, but a lot of players transferred there. You have West Potomac, who had previous all-district players from last year who are going to return this year. They went to Bishop O'Connell. You have Darius Bivens at Alexandria City. These two teams are always really good programs, but you had Bivens over at AC, who then transferred to Bishop O'Connell. So they've kind of, lost a little bit of game this year and a bit of their talent, but they always, seems like last few years they've really been able to put something together. They have some great coaches over there in those programs respectively, so we're probably trying to find somebody to piece together. But with that, it might be a struggle with some of the more inexperienced guys that they're probably going to be having over there. But for Bruins, last year, same story. They were kind of inexperienced, but again, they bring in, a lot of experience this year. We saw Tye Clayton, who was a starter over at Rock Creek Christian. Mm-hmm. Nick Tarr has some experience. You mentioned some of the other football guys. Xavier Maine, Brown Callanan, Cleet Cash, who's been on team since freshman, has been good. Really good 3-point shooter. Now, of course, it probably will take a little bit longer for him because he is recovering from a hand surgery that actually ended his football season. And Walker Mitchell was a little bit banged up in a football season. He might still be recovering from that. I'm not too sure about that. You might know, John. Walker
Mitchell, I'm pretty sure he's starting to get a lot better than he was earlier in this season. I think he'll be back in it probably within a few weeks here. But Khalid Cash, of course, you mentioned he had a hand surgery, so he's gonna be out for a decent amount here, but hopefully he'll get back to it by before the season is over. But definitely a lot to be excited about here at the start of the season. So
yeah. Coach Beatrice, of course, he's known to coaches around here, someone who's very dangerous. I think also something has to do with, the Bruins are kind of, they went through a change in their system. I know that they were more of a slower paced offense, but he's really trying to get back to a more really big, fast paced offense, that's very up tempo. We saw a lot of pace and space last game, so that's kind of something they had before that, he's trying to get back at. So probably, adjustments with the system as well. But again, it's really working out well this year. Clayton and Tarr's putting up really big points. Actually, Clayton, I know, had only averaged about 4 points per game last year. He was probably playing in more of a defensive role over at Rock Creek Christian. He was really good, actually. Steals 1.8 steals per game. I know he's had some shooting struggles as well. But again, he is actually named the boys basketball shooter of the week. So he's really showing his shooting prowess early on, really fits well into the Bruins pace and space system. I mentioned Dean Johnson. Nick Tarr, we saw Brooke Contenu, sophomore. He has some really good shooting capability. Also, big shout out on defense, all the guys, steals and blocks. Overall, really good team effort by them there. Nate McComb, the defense, the junior center, 18 rebounds. And the Bruins, again, you mentioned, all those football guys. They're doing that without Xavier Maine, who's been the leading scorer for the Bruins the last couple years. They're doing it without one of the more experienced players in Khalid Cash, who's been a big part of that team since he was a freshman a couple years ago. Brown Callanan, who was a bigger part of the team last year. A lot of football guys, once they come back, again, we mentioned Mitchell and Khalid Cash, who are a bit hurt right now, both part of big part of Bruins football secondary. They're really going to have a lot of depth coming back. Well, with the 5 guys that they're putting out right now and starters, if they add those 4, you have a lot of depth at that team. That's a Lake Braddock team. I'm saying that, watch out. That team is going to be really dangerous. And, that win is also really good for momentum, being a very good Marshall team of a face of very good Edison team. Tomorrow night, that's going to be at Edison. And then I know that they face a very good South County team next week. That is one of the Patriot District favorites and possibly even in the Occoquan region this year. That's really good. They've had some really good success in basketball in the past. They've won a state title. And, of course, Fairfax is still there. Alexandria City, West Chunk, even with their loss of, star players to transferring out. They should still be good. And, there's a couple teams, West Springfield, Robinson, who have kind of been lower echelon the last couple of years. They're also expected to be pretty good too. And, There, good old Nova Hoops was talking about this the other day, how a lot of the area, not just in the Occoquan region, but, overall a lot of places in the area, even in Northern region, even with South Lake still being there, Jordan Scott and his club, Mike Desmond as head coach, it's still, very much so upper grabs a lot of places. Lake Bragg is definitely one of those teams who can, make a good run, in my opinion, even if we're talking if it's only 3 games in so far. But really what I've seen so far, I'm really impressed by what it is, and I think Coach Metris is doing a really good job getting the Bruins back to the success where they were, a few years ago, and, being really consistent in boys basketball.
Yeah, definitely. And, of course, you add in some of the guys who didn't play against Marshall there, and, yeah, you can definitely win some games against very good teams. Mentioned that Marshall has been pretty good these last couple of years, so that's a very quality win for this Bruins team here early in the season. But I'm sorry, Adam, but I've probably got to go here because tomorrow I've got an early flight to Texas. So
awesome.
So nice talking with you about football and basketball, but I've probably got to get settled in for the night here. Hopefully during the basketball season, maybe we can have some more podcasts together here. But for now, I'll just call it a night.
All right. Thank you so much, John. It's great having you.
Yep. Thanks for having me on.
All right.
Yeah.
You too. Thank you. And that was the great John Fedor, our old broadcasting buddy from Lake Bragg football. Thank you so much again to John and Coach Laguna for tuning in, talking about the Lake Bragg State Semis game in football this past Saturday, Mass. And we're, wrapping up some boys basketball talk. We're going to get some Lake Bragg girls basketball talk in just a few minutes, but kind of continue, so thank you so much again to those guys. Thank you so much for everyone who's tuning in tonight. If you are. And so, kind of back to what we were saying. So, you mentioned the Bruins being, this is a team, again, that's really hungry to succeed. I do want to mention, they seem to have some good momentum going early. That momentum is really important for a big road stretch coming up. They're actually not going to be at home again until winter break. When they play in the day after Christmas, actually, when they start their annual holiday tournament, which is always at Lake Braddock. I believe they're going to be playing Heritage Pride from Loudoun County in that first game. The brackets actually got released today, so that's who they will be playing. There's quite a few Loudoun teams. I believe the only ever Fairfax team there is Oakton, which the Bruins lost to in their season opener, or actually this game 2 was 43-40. So you'll have that. And then, of course, we said on the road, we'll be facing, Proof Robinson team that looks like could be good. I know they're off to a pretty hot start. I believe they're 3-1 to start their year. A South County team that's really good. So, again, it's going to be a big dogfighting district. Of course, you also have over in National, very good Hayfield team that won back-to-back state titles a couple years ago. It was still really good last year. Made the state semifinals, lost to eventual champion South Lake Seahawks. Of course, it's still really good this year. I know those two are matching up, I believe, tonight or sometime. It might be tomorrow. I believe most of the teams in the area are actually playing tomorrow. So it's going to be really tough for the Bruins. They might not be a team that could be state contenders this year. I think this year is going to be still, sort of kind of adjustments. But I think from what I've seen, they are going to have a lot of depth, with especially football guys coming back. They already are doing really well with the guys that they have right now. But I think they will be definitely in the upper echelon of teams in the region. I think they could definitely, like I said, bounce over West Potomac and Alexandria City. You've been way ahead of them these last couple years in the standings. You also, speaking of West Potomac, you also mentioned a really interesting fact. So Bruins were 3-24 last year. Defensively, actually, they allowed less points than West Potomac, who, again, went on to win a region. I lost to Oscar Smith in the first round at their court in Alexandria. I believe it was on some buzzer beater, if I'm not mistaken. You guys can correct me on that if I'm wrong. Yeah, it was a really good West Potomac team. I could have very well, made some good money, making a good run there in the States last year. they have that going on. It's a pretty wild stat to me and shows, kind of the Bruins have, despite the fact, that they really have not been there the last couple of years. I know they've had a lack of, maybe depth, maybe a bit of a lack of talent, and just, overall maybe changing in, the systems, that Coach Mietris has been putting in. He's trying to get it, kind of the way he wants it to run. And seems like he's really getting those players now. It seems like they're really coming into their own now. Of course, mentioned guys like Dean Johnson and Brooke Antenna, Nick Tarr, Ty Clayton, who's doing a really good job with Blake Braddock right now, starting off with his Bruins career red hot. He's really breaking out, becoming, looks like he could be one of the Northern Virginia's better stars. So, yeah, be sure to look out for Blake Braddock boys basketball here coming up. And so let's get into some girls basketball talk. This will be our final segment of the night. So quickly, they lost to Marshall 45-37 on Tuesday. They're actually going to be at home tomorrow. Again, tune in to Lake Braddock Student Broadcasting YouTube channel for that game. I will be on the call, so that's one you not want to miss. The likes of, you'll see Sarah Chalky, Shannon Heiner, and Kenny Marshall, three-headed dragon there. All great scores for Eagles. All three of them were all regional last year. That will be a really good game to see. Big test for the Bruins. And the Bruins, like John said, they've been kind of off to a slow start this year. So far, they're 1-3. They lost to a really good Chantilly team who's looking to make states this year. That's looking really good. They had a blowout loss to Wakefield in their season opener by about 18 points. Their one win came this past weekend. They faced Trinity. I believe it was Trinity Park at Meadowview. And it was a private school in Falls Church. Took place in Falls Church High School as an invitational. And they actually won that game 40-28 was the final of that one. I believe it could have been 38-28. One of those two. But still, Bruins got a solid win there. It's probably a year, in my opinion, where Bruins will probably see quite a bit of struggles. A lot of lack of experience this year. Of course, he had a graduation of a lot of star players. Sarah Pritz, of course, comes to mind. She, of course, scored 1,000 points for Bruins. She got that last year in the playoffs versus Justice for regional play-in game that Lake Braddock had before it fell to Robinson in the region quarterfinals. Of course, he had Elena Small, who's been a really good three-point shooter. Pritz as well. She was also All-State. She was also the former Patriot District Player of the Year as a sophomore in the 2021-22 season. So she's a big loss. Of course, she was really good shooter as well. You got Mackenzie Holiday, who's gone now. She's, I believe, playing soccer at Jacksonville. Shout out to her. Shout out to all three of them. And she had been, I know she was on the all-defensive team last year. Really good rebounder. Pretty decent scorer for Bruins as well. So expect down year. Now where you already have players returning, you have Emily DePaul at guard. Very, very good facilitator type player. Can really read her players well, and and does a really good job getting it to where she needs to. She also is really good attacking the rim, something it seems like the Bruins really have. They will definitely have a lack of shooting this year too, so they're probably going to be a lot more aggressive, running up to the paint. So maybe a bit more pick and roll. I'll probably see, the big Emma Cajun, who's returning for them this year. Give them a lot more opportunities like that. Trying to run a lot of those plays in the Bruins system that Liz Reed is gonna throw at them. You have, of course, we mentioned DePaul Cajun, who's shown a lot of promise. She's actually been on a team since she was a freshman, a couple years ago. They're already showing, that they've, obviously gone through a lot of growing pains. And you mentioned some of the Bruins are probably going to make bigger roles, step into bigger roles this year. Pacey Magnuson, who was a freshman last year, she's a 5'8" guard that the Bruins really see using this year. She showed a lot of potential last year. It's going to probably get a lot more minutes with some of the graduations of players like Pritz, Small, and Mackenzie Holiday. Katie Lastra from a perimeter looks like she'll be more of a player like that this year. She'll try to provide Bruins with as much shooting as she can, especially if they have a lack of depth there. They'll see what she can do, but I think she's had some nice moments from a 3-point line last year. Another nice player has kind of come onto the scene now, Mackenzie Berger, the junior. I know she scored 12 points in that win over Trinity View or Trinity Park last week, I believe. She shows she could be more threat this year, again, but she's just kind of another inside room attacker. And usually that offense will probably work well against a team like Edison to some of the Bruins' advantage, considering the fact that Edison is kind of lack. Of course, we mentioned Sarah Chalky, Shanahan, Kenny Marshall all were coming back for the Bruins, or I should say the Eagles. But they don't really have, they have a lot of depth on the outside at guard, but on the inside around the post, they're kind of weak there. They do return their center, however, Lena Massey, who's 5'9", she's a pretty good defender, good rebounder as well for the Eagles. They'll have her there, but again, overall, the Eagles are probably going to have more than her to, in terms of if they want some good defense and some good that aspect in terms of production from there as well. So the Bruins will probably try to take advantage of that. So you'll probably see, May Edison boxing him out a bit more to try to prevent that from happening. And, force the Bruins to shoot more, which they're not as good at this year. And of course, another thing we got to bring up is that, Coach Reed is, the Bruins are also lacking, some depth overall this year. And, probably Coach Reed, she's kind of handled that for. I know she was a former coach at TJ. TJ's a school, of course, kind of have to be admitted into. It's kind of like the private school, in some cases. You really have to be admitted. And so TJ, you got to take the test and all that. And so it's gonna be really, interesting to see her work with that because, of course, she has that experience, working for lack of depth at, TJ. Certain years she actually did a pretty good job there before she came to the Bruins in 2019-2020 school year. This is her 6th season with the Bruins. She's done a pretty nice job with them there, for Bruins so far. And, but I mean, I think for Bruins, it seems like there's still some people saying that they could still, possibly put something together. Me personally, I don't think that's really going to be much the case this year. I think it's definitely going to be some growing pains, huge lack of experience. Next year, you see the Bruins probably being, significantly better. But this year, I think it's just going to be one of the years, where, the Bruins might just have to, chalk it up and accept it and say, hey, we're going to be some learning curves this year, but we'll be back even stronger next year. And I think, that really could tell, in that game versus Chantilly, of course, really early on. But, I think in that game, the Bruins were kind of showing who they kind of really were. And, that's kind of who I expect for them to be, throughout the rest of the season. But again, they'll, next year they'll have Lastra, they'll have Mackenzie Berger, they'll have Emma Kajun coming back. They'll have Pacey Magnuson. A lot, definitely a lot new starters this year. But next year, they're only, think, losing Emily DePaul. Now, I know they had Sophia Henry as well, who's the D1 soccer player committed to Army. I'm not really sure what happened to her. I know she's not listed on the roster. I think she might have maybe graduated a bit early, so maybe she could enroll at Army early. That might have been the case. I'm not sure. But I know I haven't been seeing her in school as of late. I know she was in school the first couple months of this school year. But I know that was a player that Coach Reed really liked last year and, kind of became a bigger part of that Bruins core. But she's not on a team this year, so losing her is pretty significant as well. That's another player of the Bruins kind of, it seems like have lost, with, at least right now, with, of course, the graduation of the stars like Pritz, Small, and Holiday again. So again, expect that from Bruins. There'll be, another big learning opportunity for them, tomorrow night, facing a very, very good Edison team. So be interesting to watch that as well. Well, thank you so much, everyone, tuning in to the Adam Hazara Show tonight. Thank you so much to Coach Laguna and John Fedora again, my broadcasting buddies over at Lake Braddock Football. Hopefully we can get John on some basketball games, at least the boys' side, later this year. We'll see about the girls' games later on. But thank you so much to everyone tuning in. I think it's our longest show, about an hour and 40 minutes. So just want to say thank you guys so much for tuning in to another show, and have a great night, everybody.